tighten your lines as we get ready to sail the 7 seas on the Political Pirate Podcast. Join Captain Ted Yoho and the salty dog John Martin as they search far and wide for the greatest treasure of all, the truth. From local Florida news to nationwide stories and the globe beyond, we've got it all mapped out. Now here's your hosts, the salty dog John Martin and Captain Ted Yoho.
Well, good Friday morning, everybody, and welcome to the 3 Ps, the Political Pirate Podcast, with your host, the old salty dog, John Martin, and, of course, the captain of our pirate ship, Mr. Ted Yoho. Good morning, Ted.
Good morning, John. Great Friday morning, and look forward to the show.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to get pretty much right into it, but, as we always sometimes bring you just a teeny bit of Gator news, Ted, I know you were asking before the show who we play out there. Well, I call it the Coach's Bowl because we're looking for a head coach, and the one everybody seems to want is going to be on the home sideline. The Gators are playing at Ole Miss, and it's no secret that the university is certainly recruiting Mr. Lane Kiffin. At least that's by all indications. So good luck to the Gators. Go Gators, go get them.
Totally.
Oh, absolutely. All right. Well, we're going to start out. We've obviously the last month and a half, literally, we've been talking off and on about the shutdown. Well, the shutdown is over now. It ended.
Imagine that.
The Senate took their vote on, Monday night, I think it was? Or Sunday night, actually. And then it passed and it went to the House. Well, the House passed it just the other day and actually had, I believe, 8 Democrats cross the aisle in the House and voted for it, and 2 Republicans voted against it. We'll talk about that in a minute. But what are your thoughts overall with to me, like the meme up there says on the board, it was a Democratic shutdown, Ted, because the Democrats could have opened the government up anytime they wanted to.
They sure could have.
And now the Democrats themselves, led by like Ocasio-Cortez, are bemoaning the fact that Democrats crossed the aisle and voted both in the Senate and in the House. The Senate was the most significant, but I think the fact that 8 Democrats crossed the aisle in the House was pretty significant too. So they obviously were in control of whether the government stayed shut down. That's about as obvious as it gets. Tell me what you think about it, Ted.
No, I think that's absolutely right. They are the ones that could have opened this government up 40 days ago, excuse me. And Ocasio-Cortez talking about these 8 Democrats, actually there are 7, and Angus King out of Maine, who's an independent. And it's interesting how the news always says Angus King is a independent, but he caucuses with the Democrats. I say that every time. He might as well be a Democrat. But Ocasio-Cortez is blaming those 8 individuals, and that primaries are coming up and they need to be primaried. Now, keep in mind who she is. She is the de facto leader of the Democratic Party in the House and the Senate. And she is a member of the Democrat Socialists of America. They call socialists, but they're really communists, as is Madami. And I know we're going to talk about the new mayor of Seattle. She is of the same mindset. And so we've got all these people that are Democratic socialists. I shouldn't say that. They're socialist communists, and they're gaining traction in of all countries, the United States of America. And going back to the shutdown, this was a shutdown that should never have happened if Congress did their work. They're working Sunday. Do you feel sorry for them? Not at all. They should have done their work in the beginning of the year so that this never happens. And so here they are. They do a shutdown. They get it open, and it costs the bottom line is it costs the American taxpayers. The estimates now are over $1 trillion. And,
it was something like $15 billion a week, at least, something like that.
Yeah,
at least, or maybe a day. I don't know. It was crazy. Go ahead, Ted. I'm sorry.
Our interest is $3 billion a day that we owe on our debt, and it just makes a bad situation worse. It makes the hole in the Titanic bigger. Every day it goes on, every second it goes on, it gets bigger and it sinks quicker. So
yeah, absolutely.
Let's move on here. What's happened. It's how we govern from this point forward.
Absolutely. Well, you mentioned about the lady that is now going to be the mayor of Seattle, and we may
Right.
talk about her more in depth in a little while. But I also wanted to mention something. I don't know if you saw this. It kind of was under the radar a bit, but on that Tuesday election that the Democrats are so celebrating in New York, in Ithaca, the city of Ithaca, a young lady, don't know much about her, but she seemed, I mean, I think she's highly educated, degrees and all that kind of stuff. But she won a city council seat in Ithaca, New York. And not only is she not a progressive socialist or whatever, she's a card carrying member of the Communist Party, ran as an independent, and was openly communist. As I say, she is a card carrying member of it, and she won a city council seat in Ithaca, New York. I mean, I don't know about you. I know nothing about her other than that, but that is a bit shocking to me.
John, it really is. A card carrying member of the Communist Party, and she wins in the United States of America, a country that fought against communism, the spread of communism. That was really what the whole Vietnam War started at, that brought America into it. It was to protect French colonialism in the beginning, but that didn't work with the presidents at that time. And so they switched it. It's to prevent the spread of communism. And so now we're electing communists in our nation. We're doing it in a big way in New York City with Ocasio-Cortez. All those people that are supported by the Democrat Socialist of America Party. And America needs to wake up. You know, if you want to look at the future of America, look at what's going on small scales around the country that are just happening, and it's going to gain momentum. You know, there's a thing, the exponential curve, you know, it looks like a hockey stick standing up. It starts off very slow like this, and then it shoots up. And when they get that kind of momentum, America will flip from being a constitutional republic to at best, it'll be a socialist state, but it'll be communist control. And then add in the power of AI, of what they can do. China already does this. They've exported that technology to Venezuela, to where they can control their citizens' every movement by what the citizen does. They can shut off their credit cards. They can shut off them getting gas. They can shut off, you know, anything they do if they want to. And if the Democrats do this and get in power, you know, that's what they're going to do.
Yeah, well, you mentioned Mondami, so I have to say it. I just want to tell New Yorkers, because I know they're very worried about Mondami coming in, but rest assured, things are about to, I started to say improve, but certainly change, because he just said this week, you know, he's talked about the subway and all that, that he is going to request $1 billion, with a B, $1 billion for, get this, social workers inside the subway system. $1 billion. So that should make, New Yorkers feel something for sure.
Yeah, I mean, what's that going to do? Give everybody a hug? Give them a crying towel? Give them a teddy bear? You know, civil society requires some basic things from the citizens, and that starts with responsibility. You know, be responsible. You know, the Democrats have gotten to the point where they think all these programs are entitlements that people deserve. You know, food stamps, housing, you know, paying for electricity, free subway, free childcare. And, you know, everything can't be free. And I mean, again, Margaret Thatcher said it, you know, socialism is fine until you run out of other people's money. And it just will not work. You know, these things they promise. It reminds me in high school when I ran to be the president of my ninth grade class and I won. My candidates that were running against me were promising free sodas and all that stuff. This was in ninth grade, so that would have been 1967 roughly. I forget what year it was.
18 or 19? I'm just kidding.
What's that?
18 or 1967?
Yeah. I think it was in the last century there, John. Needless to say, I won, but later on I got impeached.
Well, you know, you were Trump before Trump, because if he loses the midterms here, they'll likely impeach him. But I like the idea, one of the terms they use all the time, and I'm not knocking people that are on food assistance and food stamps,
absolutely not.
but I love how they call it their benefits. You know, their benefits. I mean, so it's not really. I mean, that I just don't like that term benefits. You know, to me,
entitlements.
Yeah, basically our social services should be for two types of people: those that cannot help themselves, either through some type of handicap situation, which a lot of that can be overcome. Obviously, there's people do that all the time, and people who are so old and in turn that they can't, you know, but everything else should be a temporary bridge to elevate you to where you can take care of yourself. That should be it. I mean,
well, you know, SNAP started off as it was called TANF, Temporary Assistance for Needy Families, Infants and Families. That's how it started off, temporary. It was a temporary program like TSA. It was a temporary program, but once the government starts something, it only grows in size to justify its presence. And you know, I'm all for helping people out when they're down and out, but it is not a lifestyle. This is not something, and you can go to these places. The Christmas ball, or not Christmas ball, the Ralph Hall, I think it is, in Clay County. He was the sheriff there. It was a great. It is a great organization, and it gives out at Christmas toys and all these things. But it's generational. I saw grandmothers, their daughters are coming in there, and they're getting all these free things: bicycles, basketballs, clothes, shoes. And then when you follow them out to load up their car, it's a brand new car. And so it's generational, and people think they deserve that. And, you know, America would never have evolved had they had that mindset. I mean, if life got hard, we never would have gone west of the Mississippi River. You know, God bless the pioneers back then, you know, through the sweat and toil that they did, the struggles over slavery we had in this country. That was an ugly past, but we've become a great nation because of that. And these people want to take us back. And this is true socialism, communism, John. They want everybody equal. They want everybody equal so that there is no higher, there is no lower, but they're always going to be the oligarchs.
Absolutely. Well, back to this shutdown and the end of it. You know, the Republicans held firm, certainly led by Donald Trump at the top, but the Senate leader, a majority leader, Thune, and others, and that kind of thing. But I want to play this quick video because I think this is from President Trump. And I think this shows, and this is no big news to the Democrats. They knew this going into the shutdown. But I want to play this because I think it shows just how firm Donald Trump and therefore the Republicans were going to be on this issue. Let's play it. We'll come back and talk about it.
Today, we're sending a clear message that we will never give in to extortion, because that's what it was. They tried to extort. The Democrats tried to extort our country. In just a moment, I'll sign a bill exactly like we asked Democrats to send us all along, many days ago. This cost the country $1.5 trillion, this little excursion that they took us on.
I love what he says there, Ted. President Trump, and this was after the shutdown when he was signing the bill after it passed both the Senate and the House. He said that we will never give in to extortion. And he made that really clear. The Republicans did as well in the Senate, especially, that they weren't going to do that from day one before the shutdown ever started. So the Democrats basically admitted now that this was all theater, all for show, because they knew the Republicans were never going to cave and the end was going to be exactly what it was, and that they didn't really get anything out of the shutdown other than a commitment to take a vote on these Obama subsidies for the Biden subsidies for Obamacare, which they were going to do anyway. So to me, it just shows all of this was theater by the Democrats.
John, it really was. And the whole thing that the Democrats were trying to get is to create that divide over health care and Obamacare. They wanted the subsidies to be extended. And, you know, it was interesting because as I go up to D.C. once a month, I heard members, I mean, it's the members you see on TV saying, oh, we need those subsidies. We're going to have a lot of people lose health care in our district. And so there was a lot of Republicans that behind the scenes, they wanted to support extending those, but the extensions came at the expense of taxpayer dollars and to the benefit of the insurance companies. And people, as we talked about on Monday, people were paying their insurance prior to COVID. The subsidies came out when COVID hit. And I remember Elsie Hastings, because I was still in office and he was still alive. He said, because people were asking for, hundreds of billions of dollars. He says, we need to ask for trillions. Of course, he was wanting to give money away. And so COVID's over. These subsidies that they wanted to extend were the ones that were not really necessary, maybe for some people during COVID. But after COVID, things should go back to where they were, where their people were paying them. But it was an entitlement, John, like you were saying. They give to say, oh, look at how generous your government is because you voted us in. Now that they're out, they want to say, well, Republicans want to take away your health care. No, they don't. They want to take away the subsidies that shouldn't be there.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, as I said on our show on Monday, and I still put this challenge out there because I can be wrong every now and then, but name me one entity, whether it be a college, in this case, a healthcare, where when government puts money into it and gets involved, that the prices go down. Name me one, and chime in on our Facebook site, chime in on our show and that kind of thing. Let me know, because I'd love to know it, because I can't recall one. Can you, Ted?
No, I can't. And this goes back to our show on Monday. 85% of Americans had health care on their own. But the government comes in and messes it up for everybody to do this great Obamacare. And really, keep in mind what Obamacare was about. It was to eventually go to a single payer system. But going back to the 85% of Americans had health care on their own or through their employer, the government should have looked at that 15%. If they really cared about covering the uninsured, they should have looked at the 15% and said, how can we cover these? And keep in mind, we were spending over $6 to $7 billion back when I was in Congress, probably about 2016, because I did a lot of research on this. We were spending $6 to $8 billion on the public health clinics, free health care. And, you can go into a hospital, they can't deny you emergency care. But the idea is to do your preventive medicine up top or in the beginning, so you don't have to go to the ER. There'll always be needs for ER. But a lot of times when you talk to hospital administrators, they say the majority of the people that come into the ER, what they really need is to be triaged and maybe a social worker, because, they're confused in life or some things are going on where they need to be redirected out of the emergency. I'm off track here. I'm sorry. Let's get back.
That's okay. We'll get back to the shutdown thing in just a minute, but you always trigger me, Ted, so I got to make this quick point. It's probably been about 25 years ago, something like that. I was appointed to
remember that far back ago.
Yeah, it's my hair wasn't 100% white back then, but I was appointed to it's an Alachua County-wide deal, the 10-year committee to end homelessness in Alachua County, which is, Gainesville is the center of that. Well, of course they didn't, right? But in the course of the task force meetings we had, a couple of studies came out that was fascinating to me. And this was 25 years ago, basically 20 years ago at least. Out in San Diego, they literally tracked every homeless person that was getting some type of assistance, and they figured in, emergency cares and all this kind of stuff. If they ended up going to county jail or city jail and locked up, all that stuff. And in the course of 1 year, they tracked like a dozen of them. How much do you think they average spending on each one of those individuals in a year? And this is 25 years ago.
It would have to be in the thousands.
100 of those thousands.
No way.
$100,000 per person per year on all the care they give, direct benefits or whatever, going to jail, going to always to an emergency room, police interaction, all of that stuff, $100,000. And they showed that you could get a condo at that time on the beach with a full-time housekeeper for about $110,000 back then. And then one more thing on that, Ted, and I'll turn it back to you. This, I'm coming home. When Jacksonville hosted the Super Bowl, this came out about that time. They basically started tracking the homeless there to figure out how much they were spending. They built a temporary shelter to put them all in during Super Bowl week and all that. But they tracked it for like 3 months, and they were going to track it for a year. But it was in 3 months' time, it had already hit $26,000 per person, which Jackson was a lot cheaper to live in than San Diego. And they cut the study off because they didn't want to know what the final number was. But it always comes to me, it just shows you how crazy the system is and how government is obviously not the solution.
Government is not the solution, John. Government can change the dynamics, though, and just say homelessness is not an option. We are going to have facilities that if you're out of a job, and a lot of these people that are homeless are really houseless. You know, they lost their house, they got laid off, they couldn't pay the mortgage, they got kicked out of the house. I don't know if I told you on Monday, but I was at the Dollar General here in Satsuma, and I asked the lady, how is it going? She goes, oh, I haven't been paid. This was on a Monday. And she goes, I haven't been paid. And she goes, and I'm living in my car. And this lady had gray hair. And I'm like, how can that be? You're living in America. You're in your 60s, it looked like. And a big company withheld their check on Friday. She didn't get it. And she's living in her van. And I think there ought to be facilities for people. They can go in there. Your option is not, you don't have the option of living under a bridge or a passway. You know, in Washington, D.C., and I know they do it here in Gainesville, they accommodate the homelessness by giving them tents, putting up porta-johns, and letting them live there for free. I think that should not be an option. If you're in that situation, we have a government program to fix anything that is ailing you, and put them in these shelters or these facilities, re-educate them, retrain them, give them mental health counseling, but you're not going to live on the streets, period. And you could do that a lot less than that $100,000 per person, I would bet you.
Well, Mandami's got a plan for that, Ted. It's going to be called the free bus system, because I guarantee you that those buses, if they're free to anybody, they're going to end up being homeless camps in the bus, because I've seen that firsthand in New York myself.
Yeah, and the social workers will be there comforting them and giving them hot chocolate or giving them free needles and syringes.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to take a quick break here, and we're going to come back and dig a little deeper into this shutdown and talk about the leadership of the Democratic Party, because there literally are some infighting going on. So we'll get into that. If you'd like to be a sponsor of our program, we'd really love to have you. Look at the little tagline that pops up every now and says, contact Freddie. Make that call and become a sponsor. Like what we're doing, share what we're doing far and wide. Take us to break, Ted.
Yes, we'd sure love to have your name going across that bottom, driving business to your business. And, we look forward to talking to you after the break, and we'll be right back.
Although the owner of Lewis Oil Company maintains she is 29, Lewis Oil turns 60 years old in June. Chevron would like to recognize the North Florida second-generation family-owned business, celebrating its growth and staying power. Lewis Oil Company maintains significant on-hand supplies, strategically located fuel depots, a delivery fleet, on-site service, fuel card locks, and convenience stores. Lewis Oil Company understands its responsibility in the local economy by providing service and delivery on demand and in crisis. As a first responder for 18 Florida counties and the Southeast from Texas to Virginia, we are proud of this rare accomplishment. Lewis Oil delivers.
This is Ward Scott, and I want to thank all our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills. The Ward Scott Files premium sponsors are Crime Prevention Security Systems, large enough to serve you, small enough to care.
Meldon Law, the only official injury partner of the Florida Gators.
The Ward Scott Files Gold sponsors are Lewis Oil Company,
Shoot GTR,
On the Spot Dry Cleaners, R&R Construction, and Style Cuts. If you are interested in promoting your business on the show, you can visit our website, www.wardscottfiles.com, and click on the Advertise Here banner on the right side of the page, or call my friend Freddie at 352-284-3733. Again, thank you to all the great businesses that support the Ward Scott Files. And remember, if you like the show, thank our sponsors and support the businesses that support us.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. May God have mercy on your soul.
Or that very much surprises me that you've never been tased.
You can't handle the truth.
All bees poop.
A warthog. He's going to come up the steps. Here he comes. Oh my goodness, and he's huge. Hello, boy. Wonder if we can pet him. Hi, boy.
Can we touch him? No, don't.
Help me! Help! Help!
And every time I see our commercial break in there, Ted, I think of things, and I used to say all the time, if you don't get anything out of our show other than this, and I'd have a topic, mine would be, don't pet the warthog.
Don't pet the warthog. And it is our weather break. I mean, we're supposed to talk about that. So the weather is absolutely gorgeous here in north central Florida, in the Good Life community of Weelatka on the St. Johns River. I hope it is.
I'm in Fort Hawthorne, Florida, as I call it, and heading down to go fishing as soon as the show is over. Well, when we went to break, we were talking about the shutdown and how it's ended. Of course, it could be temporary. They're going to have to revisit this in January, and also we might be right back where we were. But during the course of all of this, and especially in the aftermath of the Democrats caving, and they control, as we said at the top of the show, the shutdown from day one. But where are the Democrats now? And I'm going to play you a quick video, Ted, and we'll come back and talk about it. This is John Fetterman when he was interviewed shortly after the shutdown ended. And he was asked about who is controlling the Democratic Party. And I think he gives you a pretty straight answer. Check it out.
Democratic Party in the Senate, in the House.
I know, and no one really knows, and I think my values are reflected in my vote and the things that I support here, and if that might put me at odds with parts of my party, I'm okay with that. I mean, we need to be a big party, a big tent party. So for me, it's like these are pretty reasonable. I mean, my party's always been opposing shutting our government down. I'm not sure why it's controversial now to devote these things. And I refuse to put all these people in the middle of this political kinds of brinkmanship.
Well, there you have it from who I think is probably the leading Democrat. Now, the Democrats don't think that themselves, but in my book he is. But John Fetterman clearly, when asked who is leading the Democratic Party, he said no one, Ted, no one is leading the Democratic Party. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, there is a void, and nature abhors a vacuum. And when there is a vacuum, if you don't have strong leadership with purpose, that vacuum will be filled in by somebody you may not want, like an AOC or Madani. And it's just like that mayor or that person that won that city council seat in Ithaca, New York, a proud communist. And so what's that void what's going to fill that void? Who's going to fill it? It's going to be the one that has the most ambition. And it's going to be the AOC types, Iona Presley, Jasmine Crockett, Rashid Tlaib, Ilhan Omar. These are the people that are really bold enough to take the leadership. Are they the people we want? Absolutely not. Of course, you could throw Tim Kaine in there, the guy that says your rights come from government, not from the creator. They're in a mess. But yet, when there's that much chaos, somebody will come out of that. And you look at the Weimar Republic pre-World War II in Germany, Hitler came out of that mess. And we know what happened then. And, this is where we're heading in this country if the American people don't wake up. And our job on this show is to educate people. We want people to know what's going on. This is real, folks. This is happening in America. And if we don't get involved, and I know nobody wants to be involved because the football game's on or you've got family coming over, this is about the survival of this republic to pass on to the future posterity of this nation. And it's our responsibility.
Yeah. Well, when I think about that, I think about that Cuban migrant that spoke at Donald Trump's first,
Yeah, no, I remember that. That guy was very impactful.
Yeah, he said that his father basically told him about America that, there's nowhere else to go. There's nowhere else to go. And I was talking to a German guy over this past week that was born in Germany but left there at a very, very young age, and we were basically talking about what happened. I said, all you really need to know about systems is right there in Germany. When the Berlin Wall collapsed or was taken down, which way did people run?
Mm-hmm.
That's all you really need to know right there. Which way did they run? East or west? It showed you that. But we're talking about who the leader of the Democratic Party might be. And I got a short video of someone, Ted, that I know holds a special place in your heart. Let's play this because she may be the new leader of the Democratic Party. Check this out.
So important for folks to understand is that this problem is bigger than one person, and it actually is bigger than the minority leader in the Senate. You had 8 Senate Democrats who coordinated their own votes on this. A leader is reflected as a reflection of the party. And Senate Democrats have selected their leadership to represent them. And so the question needs to be bigger than just one person. We have several Senate primaries this cycle. I know I'm being asked about New York. That is years from now. I have to remind my own constituents because they think that this election is this year. We actually do have Senate elections this year. And my hope is that people across this country...
Well, there you have it. Ocasio-Cortez literally saying that everybody needs to be primaried. And she reminds people that as far as Chuck Schumer, that's a few years off before that would happen. But I want to say this, Ted, and then I'll turn it to you. The one thing I hear people say about Ocasio-Cortez that I totally disagree with is that she's stupid, that she's got a low IQ or something like that. Ocasio-Cortez is extremely intelligent, extremely bright, and very crafty. I disagree with 99.9, if not 100% of what she says, but to put and say that she's not a smart cookie and knows what the heck she's doing is dangerous and a disservice to yourself, not to her. But go ahead, Tim. What are your thoughts on whether she's the de facto leader right now?
Well, I hate to agree with you, but I think she is. And, when she came in, I just thought she was ignorant and dumb as a rock. The world was going to end in 12 years. All the garbage she said, the border agents down at the border or southwest border were snatching children away from their parents and throwing them in dog cages, making people drink out of the toilets. I mean, that was just ignorance. But you look back now, and she was, I think, what you described as crafty. It's the Overton box. Overton box it's a box of where the majority of people think, and then you can shift public opinion by going way extreme. And you take what AOC and the radical left is doing, the progressives, they push it way over here so that it balances out and you're not way over here anymore, but you're way far from where you were when you started progressively. And it can work both directions, conservative or liberal. And I think she is crafty, and she's being very well groomed by a team of socialists, communists. And again, I just can't believe people think that what she's talking about and things that Madami is talking about, that you're going to get all this free stuff. There's going to be a revolt for people that are the producers. This goes back to Ayn Rand's book, Atlas Shrugged. You've got the producers and you've got the takers. And the producers get to a point where they just shut down and said, see ya, and they go off and do their own thing. And the ones that were dependent on all these entitlements and programs, it collapses. So, if people vote these things in, these type of people in, and these policies in, by God, they have to live with them. I'm, for one, not going to live with those policies.
Well, like I've always said, man, you can vote yourself into socialism or communism, but you always got to fight your way out and possibly shoot your way out. No question about it, everywhere it's been. But if the election, just to sum this up with AOC, if the election were held today, right now, and she decided she was going to run, she'd be the Democratic nominee, in my opinion. Now, whether or not and be a strong contender to actually win the presidency, as scary as that sounds, based on what you see how people vote. But I mean, to me, if she wants it right now, she is the leader of the Democratic Party. As much as Newsom would want to be, I think it's actually her.
That's a scary thought.
I hope I'm wrong. I'd love to be wrong. I don't think
you're wrong. I think, we've talked about the impending civil war. If that were to happen, would there be a civil war? I mean, people are fed up. I've had strong Christian conservative families tell me they've had talks with their family and their sons saying, this generation, your generation, may be the first one that is called to arms against fellow citizens. I mean, they're giving talks to their family. And it's not just one family. I'm hearing this from a lot of people. They're ready to pick up arms. Trump has given us a respite from that, but he's only there for actually, his policies are only there until the midterms. If he loses the House, he'll be impeached. And if he loses the Senate, they will impeach him. And so, freedom is very fragile and just one election away, John.
One election, yeah, it's on top of what Reagan said. One generation. It literally is coming down.
We're down to the wire. It's one election away.
I hear you on that. Well, before we move on from this and pick up another topic, we were talking about Fetterman, and I want to play. First of all, I'll just say this: that Fetterman fell yesterday or so, I believe it was. I don't know if you heard about that. And he's in the hospital. According to the reports, he's doing fine. It's more precautionary, but he fell during a walk that he, I guess, takes on a regular basis. But our prayers are out to him and his family. But Fetterman made some interesting comments just this week when interviewed. I believe it's on CNN. And what he said even affected Dana Bash. She kind of reacted to it. But, there's this debate about who is pushing political violence and stuff more than the other. And I'm opposed to political violence on any side for any reason in the aisle. But listen to what Fetterman himself says has been happening to him. And I hope people will find this shocking. I'm not all that shocked by it. But then we'll come back, Ted, and tell me what you think of this. But this is John Fetterman, the man himself.
Take a look.
Said, quote, I've drunk deeply of the venom of both the left and the right. As a connoisseur, I can confirm that the most poisonous, the bitterest, is from the far left. That is pretty remarkable to hear you say that as an elected Democrat. Why?
It's just been my personal experience on this thing. And when I asked my digital team, I said, we're on all the platforms. Really, what's kind of the harshest? What's kind of the most personal? And the answer was immediate. They said, "Oh, blue sky. It's blue sky." And the difference is, the right would say really rough things and names. Some names I won't repeat on TV, but the on the left, it was like they want me to die, or that we're cheering for your next stroke, or that's terrible that depression won. Why couldn't it depression won? And I hope your kids find you. I mean, they even have like the graphic, a GIF where they have like a stroke, in your head, cheering at that. Yeah, and they said that. I remember one. They claimed, the doctor let us down, and why did they have to save his life? I mean, just really like.
Well, there
I just
you have
can't
it,
imagine.
Ted. And in case people are wondering, he references the blue sky, which is kind of a progressive alternative, if you will, to X or Twitter or whatever they're calling it these days. But he clearly says that, yes, he gets some hate stuff from the right, from MAGA and stuff like that, but they're mostly just critical of his policies and that type of thing. But from the left, the Democrats, he actually gets not only death threats, but wishes that his children would find him dead from a coma. Why did the doctors, save your life and all of that kind of stuff? I mean, if it's not me saying it, it's not you, Ted, or, MAGA Republicans saying it. This is John Fetterman, a Democrat, saying how Democrats are treating him. I mean, it's terrible. And just, I'm lost of words for it, Ted. Take over.
Well, it really is, but that's America. I mean, that's human nature. The ugliness that we saw when we were in politics, and I have to agree with him. If I did something that my base didn't like, they would say, you're a moron, you're a traitor, we need to throw you out of office, you're a disgrace. The left, we got death threats from. I mean, we got active death threats. There's 2 people in jail now because of the death threats we got. One of them was 2 years ago. I've been out of office for a couple of years. These things are real. And I was reading a book on Thomas Jefferson, and it was a biography. And it was talking about the vitriol back then in politics. People would write, how did the good Lord bless somebody like you with such ignorance? And it would be better to find you hanging by a rope in a tree. I mean, so that stuff's been around, but I think it's been stepped up, and it's becoming, with social media, there's a lot of keyboard junkies out there that are real bold behind the keyboard. In fact, the last death threat we got was a guy up in Seattle, Washington. And when the FBI called me up and said they got him, I said, is this somebody I need to worry about? He kind of chuckled and said, no, you don't have to worry about this guy. But he's real bold behind a keyboard, and they can make these nasty comments that emboldens other people, that'll embolden the guy that'll carry out an action. And, I feel for John Fetterman, because I think he is, I hate to say this, but he is the voice of reason for the Democratic Party.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Like I say, prayers go out.
And they ran him out of office.
Oh, yeah. Well, they literally confronted him physically. If you remember, they blocked him in a garage, wouldn't let him out, all that kind of stuff. I mean, they attacked him while he was on the boat that he lived off of in D.C. and all that. I mean, they literally were trying to kill him. But all you got to do, Ted, just to kind of sum up on this topic, is look at a few things that just recently happened. You had those people, that attorney general that won the race in Virginia, literally saying, that the Speaker of the House there should, in Virginia, right, 2 bullets to the head and children dead. And the frightening thing about that, beyond him just saying it, is that they did exit polling on people, and like I think it was 50% of the Democrats interviewed said that those statements were disqualifying, but 47% of those that said that voted for him anyway, no matter what. And then they had some polling that just came out about a month ago that I asked the question about political violence, and over 50% of Democrats said it was justified in some cases. Political violence was justified, and that was shortly after Kirk got shot.
No, it is. I mean, it goes back to one of the guys that was a strategist for the Democratic Party. He goes, we don't care about being right in the argument. We just want to win. And they want to win so they can have power. If they have power, they can control. And John, look, I sent you that article, and we talked about this in Canada, how they've got a government mandate. It wasn't law. It was something Trudeau did, but it's being carried forward to turn in your guns. And if you don't turn in your guns, they have the electronic means to turn off your life. Your credit card, your banking, telecommunications, transportation, they have that. And don't discount this, that if an AOC or Madani or the Democrat socialists get in charge, do you think they're going to let people have their guns in this country? Give me a break. And that's why the founders were so adamant about the First Amendment and the Second Amendment, because they knew the threat of a tyrannical government, a government that gains that much power is going to control your life. And they fought a revolutionary war. And so here we are moving into the Civil War, the impending Civil War, and the fuse is getting shorter.
Yeah, and to top it all off, just this week out at Berkeley, they had the Turning Point USA rally there, and Berkeley is quoted as being the epicenter, supposedly, of the free speech movement. I actually think it was 1776, but that's just my opinion. But they had people were accosted trying to get into the facility and literally beaten and bloodied by people who were being paid to stop free speech in America. And I don't see anybody on the left criticizing that.
I saw that, and it reminded me of the brown shirts of Adolf Hitler. Those were the thugs doing exactly the same thing. And where is the media? Where is the media attacking this stuff? They never attack that because they're in bed with those kind of people, which I don't understand, because once those people take charge, you think there's going to be a free press? Give me a break. They will be censored more than they've ever been censored before. But those are the brown shirts of the Nazi party. And I'm not calling them Nazis. I'm just saying history repeats itself. And by God, people better wake up, or you're going to have that. We experienced that when we were in Washington, D.C. I've experienced that when I had town hall meetings. And you and I have seen that when you went around to the Tesla protest. These people are paid people. You look at them, and they couldn't fight their way out of a brown paper bag, but I don't even know. Yeah. Anyways, this is what's happening. Wake up, America. This is a call in the middle of the night. Paul Revere Raider with my candlelight saying, wake up, wake up.
Well, we got a few minutes left in the show, and I want to move into a topic that I'd rather ignore to a certain extent, but it keeps coming up over and over and over. And I'm actually going to use a New York Times article about this, because I read stuff and watch stuff so you don't have to, part of my public service. But the Epstein files issue has popped up again because the House, they signed a petition, 218 signature. It's called a discharge position. And right. Republicans signed on it too, not being overly critical of any of them. But it happened Wednesday night when they were voting to keep the government open or to end the shutdown. And basically it forces a vote at some point about whether to release the Epstein files. Speaker Johnson has said that vote is likely to come next week. I doubt that, will it pass the House? Probably, but it's probably dead after that. But what are your general thoughts on where we're at with all of those issues?
Well, the discharge petition is going to come up, and it will pass the House. But I think, like you said, I don't think it will pass the Senate. And see, now that's going to give fuel for the midterms. The Republican Senate majority is blocking the release of these files. And if you take it back to the genesis of this, in the House and the whole investigation, members of Congress run on, we want transparency and accountability. All right, here's your opportunity. I agree. Release the Epstein files in total. They should do that with the JFK assassination. They should do that with UFOs. All these investigations that they have clandestine hearings and they don't let the public know, that causes this banter out here and this division, expose it and let the chips fall where they may be. And I think they should. Johnson was holding off to get that Representative Grijalva, I think out of Arizona. She was the last one to sign this, and Republicans and Democrats did. And if you believe in transparency, this should go through the House and it should go through the Senate and let expose that stuff. I think Bill Clinton needs to be more worried about this than anybody else. Maybe
he's the only one that literally had a portrait at the guy's house in a dress.
Well, and
Pretty
maybe
much.
he'll show up at a hearing on Capitol Hill in his blue dress.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the big news that kind of came out of this, and it kind of backfired already on the Democrats, is the Democratic members of the House Oversight Committee released, because they had possession, the committee did, of a bunch of emails, and they selectively released some of the emails that implicated that Donald Trump knew about this. It was all Epstein. Well, nothing between him and Donald Trump. And then, of course, the Republicans just released all that batch of emails. But there's this lady, and I'm only saying her name because originally she was redacted, but they unredacted it. Her name is Virginia, and it's Giuffre Guthrie, I guess you could say that way. She's now deceased, but she was a young victim. She wrote a book about this, but herself, she said that there was no implications on Donald Trump that she ever witnessed. She had some interaction with him when she was introduced with Jeffrey Epstein at some different events, public type stuff. And she said that President Trump treated her with dignity, respect, and she was unaware of any of that kind of stuff. And if you look at the actual emails, the totality of how they were released, it is all innuendo by Jeffrey Epstein himself. And one email that I think is critical, he alludes to the fact that Donald Trump hasn't said anything about all of this kind of stuff. And if you read into it, he's basically saying that I could try to implicate Donald Trump, but there's no proof to that. And the last thing I'll say, and I'll turn it back to you, Ted, is something that Stephen A. Smith said on his show a while back. And I'm not that big a fan of his. I'm kind of mixed. But he made a point that if all of this stuff was true about Trump, and he wasn't denying it, his question is, why didn't they release all of this during Biden administration? Because everything they have now, they had then, and the Democrats were in control, but they didn't say doodly about it. And I believe it's because they're more worried about what it's going to imply if they actually come out for Democrats than Trump. But they're just using this. They don't care about these people. They would have released it before. They only care about stopping Donald Trump. That's it. Sorry, go ahead, Ted. Sorry.
Right. No, I mean, again, it's a distraction. If you're do a triage of the serious problems facing America, where would the Epstein's files be? I mean, they'd be probably on the bottom, right? Probably above climate change. We've got $38 trillion in debt, $3 billion a day adding up in interest. We've got China wanting to take over the world. I can go on this list of things. We've got our educational system is turning out people that can't even do basic math at the college level. And do we really care about Epstein? Release the evidence, let it fall where it may. And I think that's what we really need to look at. And I think it's a distraction. Let's get back to some basics. $38 trillion in debt. I want a Congress that goes to work and works these things the way that they're supposed to. Get a budget, get your appropriations done, and let's start fixing these major problems. And to hell with Epstein's file, or that stuff is garbage. I mean, I'm not saying that just because Trump's in there and he may be involved in that. Expose it and let the voters decide. I don't think we should spend a lot of time. I think Congress needs to get back and do the work that we hired them to do. And if not, throw their rear ends out. They do not own that position. We do. Sorry.
What he said, ladies and gentlemen. We only got a couple minutes left in the show, but I want to throw something out for people. We can certainly follow this and talk about it in the days and weeks to come. And I want you to take us out after this and give us your opinion, Ted. But, Donald Trump had troops in Washington, D.C. and all that. We know what happened there. But here's some statistics for you in Chicago. Shootings have been down 35%, robberies down 41%, carjackings down almost 50% since they did that. But what is the left's response to that? The Chicago area federal judge has ordered that as many as 600 illegal immigrants be released, 300 of them almost immediately, that are incarcerated from ICE agents and Border Patrol during the time they've had this operation in Chicago. So the statistics are way down on crime. in that short period of time, but a Chicago judge wants 600 at 300 up front and possibly 600 to be released almost immediately. Close us out with all that, Ted.
Well, it just shows you that action speaks louder than words. I mean, the action that Trump did has those results. The left doesn't like those results. They get a liberal judge. Oh my God, we violated somebody's due process. Well, he said there were no warrants issued. Well, you came in the country illegally. You shouldn't need a warrant. You're here illegally. You're getting out. And I think that's something we should celebrate. And it's just one of those things that facts matter. The facts are this. The left is going to ignore those so that they can get their communists in control. And if they get in control, you think these numbers are bad? Except the only difference is the demographics. It'll be white conservative Christians that they're going to go after. People that believe in the Bible, people that stand up for the Pledge of Allegiance and the national anthem. And, those numbers are great, but they don't want to talk about them because it goes against their agenda, what they want to do.
Absolutely.
Other than that, John, good luck fishing. And we will see you Monday, and we're going to rally and cheer on the Gators one more time.
Absolutely. Peace out, everybody.
Everybody take care. Have a blessed weekend. God bless.